This animal was half zebra, half horse, and we killed the last one in a zoo. Scientists spent decades arguing about what the quagga even was. Was it a separate species? A weird zebra? A horse mutation? Here's the truth. The quagga was a natural hybrid descendant of the plain zebra. It had stripes only on its front half. The back was pure brown, like a horse. It looked like evolution couldn't make up its mind. It lived across South Africa in massive herds. Indigenous Khoikhoi people hunted it for centuries sustainably. Then European colonizers arrived, and within 100 years, the quagga was gone. Shot for sport, shot for leather, shot because it competed with livestock. The last wild quagga died in 1878. The last one on Earth died in Amsterdam Zoo on August 12, 1883. And the zookeeper didn't even realize it was the last one until years later. The most heartbreaking detail: scientists in the 1980s launched the Quagga Project, selectively breeding zebras to bring back the look. They're close, but it's not the same animal. You can't breed back a soul. There's a bear that looked like it was made of ice, and almost nobody knows it existed. In the remote coastal mountains of southeast Alaska, indigenous Tlingit people described a ghost bear, silvery blue, almost metallic in sunlight. Hunters called it a spirit animal. Scientists called it impossible. Then they found one. The Glacier Bear is a rare color morph of the American black bear. But new DNA evidence suggests isolated populations, interbred with coastal brown bears over thousands of years, producing this stunning blue-gray coat. It was effectively a color hybrid, a living genetic experiment from nature itself. The problem? Logging destroyed their old-growth habitat. Trophy hunting targeted them specifically because of the rare coat. By the mid-20th century, documented sightings dropped to near zero. Today, maybe a handful exist in remote Alaskan wilderness. Maybe no confirmed breeding population has been documented in decades. Wildlife biologists classify them as functionally vanished from most of their historic range. A bear that looked like winter itself, quietly erased while we weren't paying attention. Villagers in the Congo reported a big cat that shouldn't exist. And they were right. In the 1930s, Belgian colonial hunters in the Congo Basin began reporting kills that confused every zoologist in Europe. The animal had a lion's build, a leopard's spots, and rosettes that didn't match either species cleanly. Local Mongo and Luba people had names for this creature going back generations. It wasn't mythology, it was real. Genetic analysis decades later confirmed. Isolated populations of lions and leopards, compressed into the same shrinking forest corridors by habitat destruction, had been interbreeding. The offspring were fertile. They were establishing their own micropopulations. And then the colonial hunting era wiped them out. Not intentionally, just as collateral damage. Trophy hunters couldn't even tell what they were shooting. No living specimen has ever been documented. No DNA sample preserved in time. The only record is a handful of trophy skins sitting in European museum basements, cataloged under the wrong species name. This is what extinction without a witness looks like. A narwhal and a beluga had a baby, and scientists found its skull 30 years too late. In 1990, a Greenlandic Inuit hunter named Jens Larsen shot 3 strange whales. They were gray, no tusk, no yellow tinge. They didn't fit any species he knew, and he'd hunted these waters his whole life. He kept the skull. Scientists got their hands on it in 2019. DNA confirmed what seemed impossible. It was a Narluga, a narwhal-beluga hybrid, 54% narwhal, 46% beluga. But here's the tragic part. Isotope analysis of the skull's teeth revealed this animal had survived to adulthood, meaning it lived. It ate. It adapted. It developed unique horizontal teeth unlike either parent species, apparently useful for bottom feeding. It wasn't a freak accident. It was a functional living animal, a new branch that almost was. Climate change is now forcing narwhals and belugas into overlapping territories more than ever before. Scientists predict more hybrids are being born right now, but without stable sea ice, neither parent species will have enough population to sustain any hybrid line long-term. Nature is trying to evolve a solution. We're removing the conditions that would let it succeed, The largest land animal of ancient Europe was secretly three elephants in one. Paleoloxodon antiquus, the straight-tusked elephant, up to 13 feet tall, tusks stretching 13 feet long. It roamed Europe and Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. Scientists thought they understood it. Then in 2018, ancient DNA analysis from bones across Europe dropped a bombshell. The straight-tusked elephant was a hybrid species, descended from a common ancestor of African forest elephants, with significant DNA contribution from woolly mammoths, and a now unknown third elephant lineage that doesn't match anything alive today. It wasn't just a big elephant, it was the result of multiple ancient elephant species meeting, interbreeding, and producing something entirely new, something that then thrived for over 300,000 years. It went extinct approximately 30,000 years ago, right as Homo sapiens expanded across Europe. Coincidence? The fossil record suggests not. Every large megafauna species in Europe collapsed in the same 10,000-year window that modern humans arrived with spears. We killed the most successful hybrid animal in European history and didn't even know what it was until last decade. Game of Thrones made the direwolf famous. Science just proved it was even stranger than the show. For over a century, scientists assumed direwolves were just bigger, beefier versions of modern gray wolves. Same family, close cousins. Maybe they interbred at the end. In 2021, a landmark DNA study from ancient bones shattered that assumption. Dire wolves were genetically so different from gray wolves that the two species couldn't produce viable offspring. They had been evolutionarily separated for nearly 6 million years. But then they found the exceptions. In a small number of fossil sites in North America, bone fragments showed skeletal features that blended both species, oversized molars from dire wolves, limb proportions from gray wolves, edge case hybrids, rare, possibly infertile, but real. What this means, as dire wolves collapsed at the end of the last ice age, 9,500 years ago, some individuals desperately crossed with gray wolves in what geneticists call a genetic rescue attempt. It failed. The dire wolf went extinct anyway. Gray wolves survived. Dire wolves didn't. And those hybrid animals, that brief, desperate last experiment of a dying lineage, vanished with them. Sometimes evolution tries everything, and it still isn't enough. The most colorful bird in the Caribbean went extinct, and we have its DNA. We just can't bring it back. The Cuban Macaw, era tricolor, was a riot of red, orange, and yellow, native to Cuba and nearby islands, possibly a hybrid descendant of scarlet and military macaw ancestors that colonized the Caribbean thousands of years ago. The last confirmed wild sighting, 1864. The last specimen died in captivity around 1885. Here's what makes this case haunt ornithologists. We have 19 museum specimens preserved in perfect condition across Europe and North America. We have full genome sequences. We have detailed behavioral records from Spanish colonists going back to the 1500s. We know exactly what was lost. We just can't reverse it. Current de-extinction technology, despite the colossal biosciences projects on mammoths and others, cannot reconstruct a bird species from museum skins. The genome isn't the animal. You also need the egg. You need the host. You need a living lineage close enough to carry it. The Cuban macaw sits in glass cases around the world, perfectly preserved, completely out of reach. Knowledge without power is its own kind of grief. A 19th century American tried to breed a superanimal. He succeeded, then it all went wrong. In 1880s Montana, Charles Goodnight had a vision. Combine the toughness of the American bison with the meat yield of domestic cattle. The result, the Cattalo, the original bison cattle hybrid. Early results were extraordinary. Cattalos survived blizzards that killed entire cattle herds. They needed no supplemental feed. They were disease-resistant. Ranchers called them the future of American agriculture. But there was a problem. Male Cattalos were almost entirely sterile. The hybrid worked, but it couldn't reproduce itself. Every generation had to be recrossed from purebred bison and cattle. The breeding program was economically unsustainable. By 1910, most programs collapsed. The purebred bison herds used in the program had themselves been reduced from 30 million to fewer than 1,000 animals by the mass slaughter of the 1870s to 80s. The Cattalo, as a distinct, self-sustaining animal, went functionally extinct by the 1920s. The modern beefalo, developed in the 1970s, is a refined version, but the original Cattalo lineages, with their unique cold resistance genetics, are gone. We built the perfect animal. Then we destroyed the wild half that made it possible.